Welcome to the Journeyman's Bits. And on a new rig, another one of Steve Renyard's split rig. And I was just sitting down watching some YouTube stuff while I was going through the heat wave part of the day and no bites were happening. Came across this rig. I thought, got nothing to lose, just tie up a couple and we'll give it a go. So I've moved the right hand rod onto the spot where all the fish have been coming from and made up this split rig. And it's all it is I'm using a curved hook. I don't think it really matters. You've got quite a large D on it. On that D are two ring swivels, and I've got a pop up on there and a bottom bait on there, so it actually sits on the bottom, something like that. And that's what's just had the fish. And then when I'm putting it out, it's on a soft link, which is the pin down. You've seen all that before with me. And just put on the buoyant bag, which I've used before, with the floating foam in it, so it actually sits on the bottom till the PVA bag melts and it'll just drop down nice and gently. And that's the one that's just done it. So one bored afternoon has produced a 21 pounder. So this is the whipping knot, or the Schnell knot, that's going to form the start of the D process. So I'm going to lay the line along the shank of the hook, form a nice loop, and then using my fingers I'm going to whip that piece of line over the top of the shank, trapping the other two pieces. Over you go, twist your hand, over you go, twist your hand, and yes, it looks like witchcraft, doesn't it? And then keeping tension in it, I'm going to pull that tag end down and then just tighten it up a little bit so it doesn't come undone, but don't over tighten it until you've pushed it up to the final position, which is opposite the barb. Now I appreciate that looks a bit like black magic, so I'm going to try and do it again with a bit of coloured braid, which might help. So you start off by laying the line along the shank of the hook and forming a nice loop. Give yourself a bit of line to work with. So you've got a tag end sticking from the bend of the hook on, that's the part that's going to form your D, and then another tag facing the palm of your hand. Now I've coloured the red bit. Now what the object of the exercise is to wrap the red bit around the shank and the two other pieces of line. Now I go round about 5 or 6 turns, and then keeping tension in the loop that you've formed with your finger, pull the tag end that's pointing towards the eye of the hook down and slowly shorten the length of the loop with your finger. If you let go of it, it'll all just go springing all over the place. Don't let go, just pull it down gently, keeping the tension in with your finger. And then just pull both the tag ends to tighten it up a bit. Don't pull it to its final tightness until you've moved the knot to the position you want it. Now, tradition says you put it opposite the barb of the hook. Once it's in that position, then you can tighten it down. Then trim off the tag end that's pointing towards the eye of the hook, and the tag end that is pointing away from the eye of the hook is going to be the part that eventually folds over and forms the D. I hope that's removed some of the mystery. Now, having formed the D, you can use that as a conventional D-rig by just sliding on one ring swivel and attaching that to your normal hook link. But in the case of the split rig, you're actually putting on two ring swivels. One for the pop-up bait and one for the bottom bait. But before you finish off the D part, I suggest that you actually attach the hook link first, because it all gets a bit crowded in the eye of the hook. So if you attach your hook link of choice, in which case mine was the Avid pin down, so I attached that first using a 4-turn grinner knot. Now in this instance, and for reasons of congestion, I only go through the eye of the hook once. Pull a nice long tag off, and then I form a loop, and then I put the tag around the main part of the hook link into the loop, and I do that 4 times before moistening the knot and then easing it down gently. And if you want a more detailed view of this, if you have a look at Journeyman's Bits Part 2, you might find that a bit helpful. And once you've eased it down, you can use the puller tool to tighten the knot off and then cut off the tag end. Now I do it that way because it's easier to get the fluorocarbon line through the hole after you've tied the hook link knot rather than the other way round. Right, having completed the grinner knot and cut off the tag, we can now finish the D by putting on the 2 ring swivels and then poking it through the eye of the hook, pulling it down tight, cutting off to the length you require, which is probably about 5 or 6 mil, poking through the eye of the hook, and then blob it down with the lighter to complete the D. So there you have the hook with the D, the 2 ring swivels, and your hook link now attached. Then you need to cut about 10 millimeters of shrink tubing, slide that onto the hook link and just push it over the eye and then shrink it down over a kettle. And that needs to be fairly short so it doesn't obstruct the way the hook sits when you've got the 2 baits in place. And then finally, for this part of the rig, determine the length of the hook link you want, fold it over, tie a figure of 8 loop, and then pull that down tight, trim off the tag end and slide over an anti-tangle sleeve. Next thing I do is to mould on a bit of tungsten putty, about 5 millimeters from the bottom of the shrink tubing. Having completed that, the next thing is to attach a bit of bait floss to each swivel, and then on the top swivel I'm going to put a pop-up on. That's once it's on, I trim that down and blob it in place with the lighter. And then on the bottom swivel, put a bottom bait. Again, that's trimmed down and blobbed with a lighter. And there you have the final split rig. So you've got one pop up and one bottom bait with a soft hook link. And of course, if you only want to fish it in the conventional D rig, then just leave off one of the swivels. Well, I hope you found that to be a little bit different. If you're already using the D rig, then it's only a small step to using the split rig. And when this lockdown's all finished, why not challenge yourself and go out and try and catch a carp on something that you're not used to using. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet and you want to get involved, please feel free to do so. Stay safe out there, guys, and I'll see you all again soon. Cheers for now. I can't swear here, can I? No swearing.